So I thought I'd do this video on my collection as of October of 2024, down here in my little corner of the basement. And the core of the collection are the consoles here, of which I've got about 50 at the moment. I think what probably differentiates my collection is I've taken more of a working man's approach to collecting. Everything here is used condition, but I generally don't have mint condition stuff in the box. I just want them to work, and I want to be able to play everything if I ever get the time. So I do have a lot of boxes, but they're all stashed away. But like I said, everything here works. It's actually all hooked up to the main TV there. That means that with a few flicks of some switches, I could play any one of the 50 plus consoles that I have here. Do a separate video on how I hooked everything up and how all that works, but just trust me for now that it does work. TV itself isn't that special. It's probably like 12 years old. Did get hit by lightning twice, but it's a 3D TV, so I kept it around. Just got a replacement video board from eBay twice, you know, for not too much. Stuff in the middle there is how I hooked everything up, as are those two VCRs on the right. And then that little guy, that 13-inch TV, I've had that for over 30 years. I use that to test games and equipment and stuff, so I can actually watch TV or whatever on the big TV while I'm kind of testing things out. And then that TV and VCR over there on the left are for light gun gaming. So I have wanted a bigger, you know, tube TV for playing those light games. Anyway, onto the consoles though. There is a logic to how they're organized, but it'll probably make more sense once I do a video on how I hooked everything up. But I've got this PlayStation 5 up here on top, mainly because it's too tall to fit into the cubbies and don't want it to overheat sideways. And then I've got this little Zavix port up here, also on top, so that the sensors can work better. And then this is a PAL Atari 2600, so I can play my PAL games without having to deal with any changing of TV settings or anything. But moving from right to left down here, this is just an old NAS unit, but I've got a Mattel Aquarius on this side and a Magnavox Odyssey 2. Then I've got my Atari 400, and then this cassette recorder down here lets you save programs or load cassette-based games for the 400. This is my Atari 5200. And this is a Tandy color computer. Down here I've got the Atari 7800, and on the bottom this is my ColecoVision. So whenever I get one of these old school dust covers, you know, I use them. But ColecoVision in there. Then I've got a Fairchild Channel F, and then this is an Intellivision 2. I do have an Intellivision, first one, but the 2 is smaller and easier to hook up, so that's what I put kind of in here. Next group over, I've got a Bally Astrocade, and then this is an Atari XE, and I've got a Sega Saturn and a Sega Genesis, and then this is the original Xbox and Atari Jaguar. Down here, this little guy over here is actually my my daughter's old Leapfrog system, but you know, she's proud that it's part of our collection, so there it is. Then I've got a Nintendo Wii and a GameCube and a Nintendo Wii U, and then the sensors are up here, so so you can play those games. And then actually the sensor for the Leapfrog is here, so you can pull it out if anyone ever actually wants to play Leapfrog again. And then I've got an Xbox X and an Xbox One. Over here I've got some more dust covers. This is a Commodore 64 under here, and a Texas Instruments TI 99 over here. Moving down, I've got the that's the Panasonic 3DO. And then I've got some of these minis. This is a Commodore 64 Mini and a TurboGrafx Mini. I've got my Nintendo 64. This is the Neo Geo CD and the Neo Geo AES. And then over here I've got a Super Nintendo and Nintendo Classics, and then kind of the OG Super Nintendo and the OG NES. And then these two things down here are just actually step-down transformers for the two Neo Geo consoles, because I've got the Japanese versions of the consoles, so they use lower voltage, and they're kind of expensive, so I decided to protect those a little better than one of the cheaper converters. Final section over here, I've got another dust cover. This is actually a disk drive for the Commodore 64. It's hooked up to the CD64. And then this is Famicom, which is the Japanese NES. Although I guess it came first. So I guess the NES is really the North American Famicom. But I've got a Sega Master System. And then down here I've got the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and Xbox 360. And then I know some purists will complain that the Xbox 360 is over here with the PlayStations, but I only did that because it's I have it standing vertically, and this is the only cubby I have left that's a vertical cubby, so he's over here. Finally down here I've got a Sega Dreamcast, a Hyperkin Retron 77, original TurboGrafx, and down here the Atari 2600 Plus, and you can't really see it in the dark, but a Sega Genesis Mini. Oh, of course, the jewel of the collection, this is my Atari 2600. This is the Vader version. I do have all the other ones, but I just hooked this one up, also under a dust cover. So those are the main consoles I do have hooked up. They're all hooked up though, and all working. And then the rest of what I have on the walls here are just controllers. Those are the Zavix port controllers, wheels for the Wii, a few other. I do have some extra shelving for future acquisitions. I have my light guns over here. It's an NES Advantage controller. On the side of this little guy, I've got these little things for the remotes for everything, and also some Wii controllers. But then the rest of the collection, I've got joysticks all across the top. Those are all Atari, just about. A few over here aren't, but again, I'll do another, I probably could do a whole video on just Atari joysticks. But I've got joysticks and controllers for all the other systems kind of along the walls here and on the side of here. And then here are other joysticks and peripherals for the other systems. From the console perspective, I also have a Vectrex here. Since that is its own TV, I didn't hook it up to everything else. And I've got a bunch of these old school handheld systems. I've also got a Nintendo Switch, an Evercade, PSP, and the Nintendo handhelds, and the old school Game Boy. And then from console perspective, I have a few other. So much for one take, but do some shoddy camera work when I was pulling these guys out. Just pulled them out and restarting from here. But I did have a few other kind of older, funky additional consoles that aren't hooked up for everyday play. This is a Hyperscan console. It's probably the worst I've ever seen, and I have it just more of a novelty. Action Max, which is actually a VCR based light gun game, so that's why that VCR hooked up to the light gun TV. We've got an APV TV Fun, which is basically a clone of kind of the 70s Pong games, telegames, which was Sears, Pinball Breakaway, another kind of Pong console from the 70s. OG telegames, pure Pong, just Pong, and then This is old school Nintendo, kind of Pong-like from the 70s, the TV game 15. The rest of the collection is all of these games. I've got kind of different shelves by all by system. So I've got a bunch of Master System games, Sega Genesis. Those are the Zavix port. Those are Commodore 64, some Evercade games, and television on the bottom. These are the Bally Astrocade. This is actually Commodore, the VIC-20, which I do have. I do have a console. It's not hooked up at the moment because I've got. I'll get into that later, but I've got some updated power supplies for a lot of my older vintage systems, and the VIC-20 I have came in two different versions, and the power input for the one I have is kind of the original, so I just have that original power brick, and I'm waiting to get my hands on the updated version so I can get a new power brick to run that. But I've got excuse me, all my ColecoVision games, and over here is Atari 7800. These are Atari 5200. Those are my Vectrex games. I've got a few Atari Jaguar games, Magnavox Odyssey 2. This is for the Arcadia system, which I don't have, 2001, which I don't have system yet, but I did get a good deal on a bunch of games, so I did get the games in advance. Fairchild Channel F. These are the Tandy games. Next row down are the Atari 400, 800 XE games. These are 400, 800s, and then kind of the gray ones are XE only. And then the bottom here is, these are all the TI-99 games, and the cassettes are remixed on the right, I think, are TI-99 cassette-based games, and on the left are Atari 400, 800 cassette-based games. This shelf here is actually all Atari 2600, from top to bottom. Last row on the bottom there are PAL games, but these are all Atari 2600. And I've got my NES games, Super Nintendo. Second row from the bottom, these are all of those Famicom games for the Japanese Nintendo. N64 on the left there. Middle row, those are actually the Japanese Super Nintendo version games. I don't have the console yet, but I've picked up a number of those along the way. And then I guess those are more Famicom games. And then on the sides here, I've got just a bunch of Nintendo DS, Game Boy, other little handheld system games. And then over here, I've got all of the sort of DVD-based games: Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox X, GameCube, Wii U, Wii. Those are PlayStation. Got some TurboGrafx over there. The Nintendo DS boxes, games I do have the cases for. And then PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PSP, the Elite TV. Got some Switch games. These are the Neo Geo AES game carts. These things are pretty cool. They're huge. Those are actually cartridges in there. I've got a handful of Aquarius games boxed. Those are actually the VCR cassettes for the Action Max, and then RCA Studio 2 games. Another console. Had growing up, I actually gave mine to my brother for Christmas because he was really jealous of it, because our grandfather had it growing up, and we loved playing it when we went to his house. But So I gave him mine. I got a few busted ones I'm trying to fix. I think I could Frankenstein one together from all the pieces, but at the moment I just have the games and no console there. And then, as I mentioned, all of the controllers up here. And I'll do a few more videos for some of these collections I think are interesting, especially Atari. I've got almost many of them. I think I'm down to about 50 individual games or variants from at least the North American collection that I'm still missing. Trying to work that gap down, but I think of course there are a few games I'll never get. Some of those ones where there's only a couple out there. Anyway, that's my collection. Hope you liked it, and hope to make some more videos on how I put everything together, and then get into some more details on what I've got here.